All right, so welcome to the CHAOSS Common Metrics Working Group meeting for Thursday, May 14th. We have a few things on the agenda. So we'll review some action items and notes from the previous meeting. Look and see if we have any PRs and issues, which I forgot to look before the meeting. We can also review the progress on the metrics spreadsheet, see if there's anything we want to do there. Progress on continuous release for the time to close metric, which is the one that we kind of finished last time. We should probably do that one before we do the progress on the metrics spreadsheet. And then we talked last time about doing some work on the space focus area. So we can talk about that. So let's start with action items and from the last meeting. So there's an ongoing action item for Dawn to look at commits. So I have not done that again this
This is
week.
always the scariest part of the meeting.
I know. I feel like, yeah. This is like the third meeting in a row that I have not done the thing that I said I would do. So yeah, we'll work on that. Sean obviously has not done well, I don't know if he's not done it. He's not here to tell us he's done it. So let's just assume it's not done. And then Matt, you had one for building out the space metrics in the Google Docs. Oh, sorry, you're on mute.
Oh, yeah, I think I've actually done that. So I'll track them down and get
Okay.
them in there.
We can look at those. I think you put them in the metric spreadsheet.
Yep.
And finalize the time to close metric. I think Kevin, you had that action item.
I did, and I did that. It is. I think we made the announcement on the list. There is an issue for it, and I created the markdown page.
Sweet. Okay, so let's have a look at the pull requests and issues. I can. Hey, Georg.
Hello.
Do you have the agenda minutes and stuff, or do you need me to post the link again? Okay. I'll go ahead and share my screen to look at the issues. Okay, are you saying CHAOSS pull requests? Actually, no pull requests. And then issues. So we have the metrics candidate time to close. So we're still looking for feedback on that. So that one looks like it's in good shape. So we'll see if we get some feedback on that. We can have another look at it again next week, unless anybody has anything that they wanna talk about on that metric. We went through it in a lot more detail last week.
I might recommend, Kevin, could you just kind of ping the list again?
Yes, and from previous experience on these releases, I would actually recommend kind of pushing it in all of the working group meetings as well, to encourage people to go look at them.
Okay.
Oh yeah, good idea. Common metrics release notes. So this was for the continuous release. Is this done? Yes. Or okay?
So that actually just stays open until we do our regular release. So
oh, I see.
It's basically it's a bucket where we can collect all of our notes and comments about all of the releases all of the continuous releases that we do up until the regular release.
Okay. I'm going to add a comment about not closing this until the regular release hits.
Okay. Yep. In the future, I'll add that comment to the header.
Okay.
Or the initial message. So when when the time to close metric is released, we'll just add the notes to that, very similar to the types of contributors or contributions note that's there now. So just like
Okay.
the name of the metric, a link to it, the comment period issue, and just when we released it, just so we have information for the release notes at the end of the year or bi-yearly, however we do it.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I don't know what this is. uh,
Can you click on the parentheses? Oh, there you go. Some parentheses, like your quotes. It's a weird title for an issue.
yeah. And it seemed to cause problems because it didn't really, there's no description, so it didn't really. And this is, oh, this is from a month and a half ago.
It's worth probably pinging Sean and say, what is this?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, whoever updated the title to something that makes sense. And then we have a whole bunch of stuff from 2018-19. Do we want to go through these and sort of triage them? I think we occasionally go through these and don't really do anything with them.
I wouldn't mind triaging them or like kind of getting them settled in the spreadsheet, like it just at least placeholdered there.
Georg, do you want to talk about this one since you opened it?
This is the new metric, burstiness of activity. This was something I found in a research paper. And the idea is that activity is not always the same. And sometimes you have, long pauses and bursts of activity again. And just to have, I don't know if it's a metric in and of itself. Maybe there is, I don't remember. But it's a way of looking at the activity data and making sense of it. So especially around releases, scheduled releases, you typically see a lot of activity right before and then a slump of activity after.
Yeah, that's interesting. Jesus' comment on it is that you could apply it to any time series metric. So is it a metric or is it a way of measuring time series metrics?
I'm not entirely sure.
Like a filter on time series metrics?
Or it might be a visualization of the activity data.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I think it needs more explanation than saying, hey, we have an activity metric and we put in there burstedness of activity. I don't think that's enough for people to know what we mean.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question for the person who does this for a living? Would you ever look at, this is to you, Don, would you ever look at like a bursty period? Would you ever want to like look under the hood of some crazy amount of activity that was occurring in a community? You know what I mean?
Yeah, probably. If it was a kind of a project that was sort of strategic for us and there was all kinds of activity all of a sudden, as I would probably want to know why. and whether or not it was something that was likely to continue. Because the burstiness could be, it could be burstiness that's an indicator of a bunch of, like acceleration of the project and future activity. So it could be, it could look like burstiness and then turn into something that was sustained over time. Or it could be burstiness where it's something like, we decided to refactor a big chunk of the code and there were a whole bunch of pull requests and commits and lines added and deleted, and it looked like a ton of activity that was really sort of a one-off. And I guess I'd probably want to know which one of those it was.
Okay. So then, okay, so then it makes me wonder, so if this is something that you might look at, is burstiness a common metric? You know what I mean? So like we have the other common metrics are like organizational affiliation. So we would look at issues or PRs that are being developed in other working groups, and then affiliation is kind of something that can span across those other metrics.
But I guess I don't see burstiness as a metric in and of itself. For me, it seems like it's kind of something that happens to another metric, or more of a maybe a characteristic. So maybe you would see during a refactor, you might see burstiness in commits and pull requests.
Okay.
If you cut a release and it turns out there was something terribly wrong, you might see burstiness in issue filing of issues, for example.
Okay.
So it seems like it's more of a characteristic.
Or is Georg's had a visualization?
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe Daniel has an idea. Daniel, I know you work a lot with analyses and different people looking at metrics differently.
Well, well, I have my own thing in my head. So I was thinking that instead of looking for burstiness, look for the other way of thinking, which is stability of a given metric. So if you think about the creation of industrial things, like well, anything, that you have, the more stable you are, the more predictable you are, so the better. So what if we try to think about the other way around? So I don't remember the name of the metric, but it's this. So you have like a metric evolving, and then you have
volatility.
Like again?
Maybe volatility.
I don't know. So there is a proper name for this, but it's how stable the metric is, and then the more stable you are, the upper and down limit of this will be even closer and closer and closer to the metric. So that difference between those top and bottom values are the ones that are telling you the stability in the process, which is pretty good. I'm not sure if this applies. I mean, you can have this burstiness for commits, but we've seen everywhere that if we are in, I don't know, in Christmas, suddenly everyone is at home, so they are not producing more commits. But what if we think about the time to, so we try to focus this on process, well, in kind of distribution over time measurement, what we have in the title. So then processes are perhaps more stable, right? So in that case, might be useful as well. So if we think about the whole process in a company, so the open source time of production is part of the time, but then you have the deployment time internally and the deployment to customer, and you have some other steps before this process. But if you have a proper process in place that you can really predictable from that point of view, then this is really useful from a company perspective, because you will say, okay, each time we throw a ticket into the community, we know that in 80% of the cases, all the time will be under a week, right? Or a month or a year, but you have a time to predict things. So the more stable, the better. That's the summary of all my comments. You shouldn't have asked. Oh, thank you for the notes, Tom.
So back to the back to the other part of the question. What do we want to do with this? Do we think it's a metric? I don't know. Do we want to leave this open? Do we want to close it? Do we want to move it somewhere else?
If it's a metric, to me, then it's measuring like when burstiness is occurring. So that would be the metric. So is burstiness occurring around releases? Is burstiness occurring at a certain time of the year? Is burstiness occurring around an event? So that would be the metric to me. Whatever that burstiness is, whether it's a commit or issues showing up or merged PRs, because then I'm measuring burstiness.
Mm-hmm.
I'm measuring these bursts.
So I'm thinking of it from the statistical perspective is like seasonal changes, seasonality in the activity or any kind of. So for example, if there was a release, so there's a seasonal pattern in the metric which you observe over the period of time.
Yeah.
And in the statistics, we normally adjust the seasonality to have a proper evaluation of the phenomena or any kind of thing we want to observe.
So I found what I meant before, which is the Bollinger Bands. These are used, for instance, the example in the Wikipedia is
What was it
yeah,
called?
well, it
Sorry.
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. What did you say it was called?
Oh, Bollinger Bands. It's in the chat.
Okay. Oh, okay.
So maybe we need a section in the common working group where we have types of analyses or types of things you can do with the data once it's collected, like calculating Bollinger Bands or.
I mean, or do we want to try and
Multiple
define it as a metric and see what happens?
So talking through this, I think, yeah, because then if we had burstiness as a common metric and it's appearing in these bursts and we're trying to understand burstiness, then or when these events are occurring, then we could look at it's common to me because then it is common as it might be useful to look at the burstiness of issues.
Mm-hmm.
It might be useful to look at the burstiness of merged pull requests. It might be common to look at the burstiness of, I don't know, whatever the other metrics might be. There are a variety of
Yeah.
things to apply it to.
I mean, in that, I don't know, in that case, it seems kind of like the time to close metric, right? Where it applies to lots of different types of data.
Yes, exactly.
Does somebody want to to put this on the release spreadsheet and link to this issue?
Yeah, I can do that.
Do you think it's a time thing?
Yes.
Agreed.
Okay.
At least that's what Georg thinks, and I'm willing to go with it because it's here in the comment. Okay. I'll just add. Okay. Then going back, we have other issues that have been there forever. Project segments by time zone. Do we? Can't remember. Did we have? Maybe I should just open the release spreadsheet.
So this would probably be a where. I mean, if this was to move forward, a where metric, if I'm understanding time zone right, and we don't have anything released as far as I know in where. We have
Georg, in the comments on the issue, you said it looked like a when metric. I could make an argument for either one.
Yeah, I don't have a strong opinion.
kind of like light years as a measure of time versus a measure of distance. Could be either. Not really.
Um,
We do have under who, I'll throw a third one in there. Under who, we do have contributor location as the pending.
yeah, Yeah, that's a good question because time zone feels like an element of who. Like a person is in a time zone and a person does things from that time zone. Because it's not really.
I could see a case. I'm sorry, I don't mean to, if you're finishing a thought.
No, I was trailing off while I thought about it, so keep going.
I could see that the time zone could be interesting. I would like to know where people are located. I'd like to have a sense of where they are geographically located. I could certainly see that case. I could also see the case of gaining insight as to when much of the work is occurring, which is the when argument.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously entangled with each other, right? I mean, if all the contributions are coming from the West Coast, I can kind of make a general guess as to when those contributions are occurring. So to me, it could reside in. Yep.
So I was just reading through all the comments again, and to me, it feels like we have what it takes for this metric to exist in the activities, dates, and time. And then we just filter it by the different modules or projects or whatever inside the community. So to me, it feels like this is a filter on top of a time zone metric.
Say that again.
So I was reading through the comments, and Jesus and I had an exchange here looking at Grimoire Lab and Augur and the time zones. And we could clearly identify that Grimoire Lab was more developed in European time zone and Augur in the US time zones. And so to me, it's like taking the date and time metric of when activities are occurring in the project and filtering it by different modules, by different types of activities in the project. So it feels like a filter on the date and time metric.
This is the date and time metric that I'm sharing right now. And we do kind of have that. We have aggregation of time by local time, which is essentially time zone.
And UTC.
Yeah.
Love it.
So for me, resolving this issue might be as simple as adding a filter to date and time, if you all agree.
But I think it's sort of added. I think it's already here as a filter. I think it's this one.
I think there's a different component though. Yes, this is the time zone. That's one part of this issue 31. And the other one is where in the project is that time zone prevalent? That's the project segment. So Augur versus Grimoire Lab. That's the filter I was thinking of adding to the date and time metric.
Okay.
So like,
Oh, go ahead, Matt.
I was just gonna say, so Gary, just pinpoint where in the effect these differences are happening. In your Augur Grimoire Lab example, you're actually honing in on the CHAOSS project and kind of pinpointing in particular where these time to zone differences are evident.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And then I think if I remember correctly, I think some of the other metrics talk about time zones, don't they?
I don't remember.
Not necessarily. What about contributors that were metric? No. Okay. Because I sort of also think that maybe this is part of a who metric, kind of a people metric, and what time zones are the people coming from? Do people agree with that, or does this really just belong more in the when category?
So for, sorry, go ahead. So to go into the who metric, I would want it to have an element of people. And the level that this metric is looking at is at activity. We don't care whether they're bots, whether they're people, whether they're employees, we don't care about who is creating the activity. So to me, it's not a who metric.
But I think of time zones as an attribute of a person, right? A person is in a time zone. And it gives us, time zones give us an indication of where people are contributing from, at least kind of long bands of where in the world, not necessarily location.
I agree with Don, because then the specific when is when in the day of the specific developer day, but the time zone is an attribute of the person, right?
I honestly had never thought about it that way, but if I look across the list of people on this call, I actually think about time zone as an attribute of every single person. And so when I look at John and Daniel and Don and King, it's pretty interesting. Never thought about that.
Okay. So I've been taking notes in the issues. Has anybody been taking notes in the notes document? Because we probably want to give somebody an action item to add it as a filter to the activity dates and times, and also to look at this as you're already doing that. Perfect.
Yes.
Sweet.
Thank
I like
you.
it when you multitask and finish things and we don't even need action items. I think it's fantastic. I think the contributor location stuff. Did I see John on the call? John Murtek? This was one of the ones that you were driving, right?
Yes, yeah, and I think, at least from my aspect, I'm trying to remember. I think there was like one or two maybe outstanding questions I had for folks. I don't know if there's still little tags in the doc or not, but I know we had talked through this and I thought we were like at least at the 90% point, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, no, I think it's looking pretty good. What I was wondering is if we should we add time zone as a, did we lose Matt?
He's on mute, I think.
Oh, sorry. Okay, you weren't in my little band of people at the top, and so I thought you were.
I'm with this group. I just drop off when I'm done.
I'm like, no, he's the one that's recording. Okay, sorry. I got sidetracked. John, I was wondering if you want to if we should add time zone as part of the contributor location.
I don't think it's a bad idea. I think we'd actually debated a little bit of how the way to divvy it down. I'm racking my brain on this, but I think there was an open question of how specific you wanted to get versus how broad you wanted to get. And I don't know. I think there was an effort, and I could be wrong here, of wanting to keep this ambiguous on purpose, just because different groups are going to group it different ways. I don't know if that rings a bell for everyone or if I'm remembering what I did months ago incorrectly. But I remember we're having a discussion about this.
I don't remember.
You're probably right. Yeah, this could have been something I had in my own mind too. So that's also a reasonable expectation.
So isn't time zone employed on the location? Like if I say I'm in the eastern location, that time zone is employed in that?
Yeah, maybe I think maybe that's just like a data collection point. But I think I think now that it's coming back to me, it was the way that this might be visualized or aggregated, that could be a dimension, but it wasn't the defined dimension. And I think that's more of like a data point that you might want to collect.
Yeah, now I remember what you're talking about when you mentioned that we wanted to leave it a little bit ambiguous, because people might what we talked about is some people measure by country, by state, by city.
Yeah.
So I think that was the level of granularity that we didn't want to get to. And I think we don't necessarily want to specify, I don't know that we want to imply anything from the time zones. I'm not sure, but it feels like it should be added somewhere in here as an element of the contributor location. It's like where they're located in time.
Yeah, let me.
Okay. Well, how about if I add that, and if somebody can add that maybe as an action item for you to look at for next time?
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, I'll dig back into this. Yeah, just
so
tag me in the doc so I'll remember where I need to look if you don't mind.
Oh yeah, sure. Cool.
Thank you.
Okay. So I will just finish. Let's see. Okay. Did somebody put that action item in the minutes? Or could someone put that action item in the minutes while I continue to go through the...
The action item is for John to try to find a location for time zone in the contributor location metric. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it's to look again at the contributor location metric and how to fit time zone into it, as long as anything else. I mean, maybe next week we want to bring that metric back and maybe finalize it as part of one of the continuous releases. Because as we were looking through it, it's looking pretty good. I think we probably just need to take one more pass through it.
Okay.
That might be a good agenda item for next week.
What issue?
Or
What's
2
that?
weeks.
Okay. Is that an issue? Oh, time. Oh, it's just number 31. Gotcha.
Yes. Okay, clarifying qualitative measures. Georg, this was your issue. Do you want to talk about that?
Let's refresh my memory. What this was about.
It looks like this was mentioned in a couple of closed pull requests, which makes me think that it's probably done and that we just never closed the issue.
To me, it feels like we were discussing filters on organizations metric, like new contributor organizations.
So
Yeah,
does that,
I think we resolved it.
okay. So I'll go ahead and close that one. New metrics being templated, geography. Should I just go ahead and close this and say that we're tracking this in the release spreadsheet? Because I feel like some of these are
Yeah, it's a better
done.
place to put them there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I'm making good progress on these. And this looks like this is just about all we're going to get done, but that's all right. Discussion on the responsiveness metrics. Looks like, Daniel, this was one of yours.
Yeah.
Actually, did we
We can
do
start
this?
with-
Because I think time to first response and activity dates and times have been released.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
time to close is in the process of being released.
Correct.
We may close this ticket, and then there is kind of a list of tentative metrics, and then we can simply create a new ticket for each new metric we might be interested in to open for discussion.
Okay. We could, why don't you have do you want me to leave this open or go ahead and close it? Because I think what we can probably do is look at these, and if there are some that aren't already included as a metric, that we could add them to the release spreadsheet.
So, so you want me to close this ticket and then
What I
what's
was
the next
thinking
step?
is that we should probably, because some of these are done, I'd say probably at least half of these feel like they're in one of the metrics that we've already released or is pending release. But you mentioned that it looks like there are a couple that maybe aren't already included, and if we could add those to the release spreadsheet.
Okay.
I can leave this open until we do that. So what I'll do is I'll leave a comment on this.
So I will add an action item for myself.
So I'll just go ahead and leave that open until you've had a chance
Okay,
to
thank you.
take a look at it. And then I think was there one more? Management of organizational affiliation and email aliases. Large scope for discussion. Okay, we have really 5 minutes left in the meeting. I'm going to say that do we want to tackle this one, or do we want to table it and make sure we covered the rest of the agenda?
Let's table it.
Okay. Okay, so on the agenda, we had final, oh wait, that's in the wrong place. Review the progress on the continuous release for the time to close metric. So it looks, I think we kind of did that. And we'll push the space metrics to next week. And then if we want to look at the progress on the release spreadsheet. I feel like we were kind of looking at this throughout the meeting. I'm not sure if there's anything we really need to look at there.
No, I think we're good for now. We added burstiness of activity to the spreadsheet today.
Okay.
And the one thing that I kind of thought is we might need to, this isn't for common, but modify this spreadsheet such that tracking metrics that have been released as part of the continuous metrics release and that have been released as part of the every month cadence.
Okay.
Would that help, Kevin, if we tracked? It seems
yeah.
like
Yeah, that would be helpful.
okay. So I'm gonna do that myself. Just add a new color.
It'll help us when we're calculating the burstiness of our releases.
All right. With that, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. I think that's it for what we had on the agenda. We've got some good action items for next week. So I think sorry, not next week, in 2 weeks. Anything else anyone wants to bring up? Anything we forgot to talk about that's important?
Good. It's nice to get through those.
Yeah, it feels good to clean up some of those old issues. That felt kind of good. I feel like I've accomplished something today.
Nicely done. All right.
All right. With that,
Thank you.
thanks for attending, everybody.
Thank you.
Talk to you later.